This conference will now be recorded.
All right, any questions, guys, before we get started? Any questions from the last session that I can take before we can get started here? Anyone, any questions as such? Anyone, any questions, guys? Are we good to move ahead? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead then. Let's check this out. So in the last session, we were trying to expand our knowledge on what is branching policy and what kind of branching policies that I can go ahead and implement on, let's say, my branches out here. And those included something like minimum number of reviewers. And I said at least one person should go ahead and, let's say, review it apart from me for my code to get merged. And after that, I said work items must be definitely linked. And after that, I said that there should be something known as common resolutions that should happen. And only after all these things are satisfied will my code get merged into the develop branch of my repository. And as and when the code is getting merged into the develop branch of my repository, I will have a continuous integration pipeline that gets triggered. This is what we were doing. So as and when my code gets integrated, I have something known as and continuous integration. And we were looking at a couple of things like what do you mean by a manual trigger versus a scheduled trigger versus a CI, continuous integration. Three different things out here. And one of the most important thing that I'm now telling, or one of the most, let's say, crucial things that I'm now telling is that in order for your pipeline service to run, meaning when your pipeline runs, it goes ahead and does all these things, right? It does a checkout, it does a restore, build, test, publish artifacts. It does a lot of things out here as such. Now, one of the most crucial ingredients for this pipeline to even run is an agent. And what kind of an agent are we using, guys? Okay, hi Kiran, screen is not visible. Shravya is telling you this. Guys, can everyone see my screen just before I move forward? Is
Yes,
anyone
Kiran.
facing? Okay. Shravya, I think it's an issue at your end. I would request you to please disconnect and reconnect the call once again so that you'll be able to, let's say, look at the screen out there. So, yes, uh, when I say agent, guys, what are the types of agents that we do have and what is the agent that we are using so far? Can anyone please tell me what are the types of agents that we were discussing about? Can anyone please tell me what are the kinds of agents that are there in Azure DevOps?
Self-hosted and hosted.
Self-hosted and hosted, exactly. Self-hosted and hosted. And what kind of an agent are we using till now in our projects?
Azure.
Azure hosted, exactly. I'm using something known as an Azure hosted agents, which means that I'm just requesting Microsoft to go ahead and, let's say, give me an agent out here, and Microsoft will go ahead cater to that particular request. They'll give me an agent out there, and I go ahead and, let's say, run my pipelines on these particular agents out here. Such. This is what I have been doing so far. This is how I've been doing so far out here. And now in today's session, I would like to go ahead and address something called as a self-hosted agent. One of the most important things, and believe me, 99 out of every 100 projects, or I'm giving a big number, 90 out of every 100 projects, this is a good number that this is an ideal number that I can give you, use self-hosted agents on their projects. It's a huge number. I have worked with so many clients and I've seen most of them working with their own self-hosted agent out here. We do not usually rely upon the Azure pipeline names at all. We do not really rely upon them. Couple of reasons why. Firstly, when I talk about an agent and when I send across a parallelism request to Azure, the number of agents that I can get is just one. So when I go and do a parallelism request, right, this is what I get. It says one parallel job up to 1800 minutes free, which means that I just get one agent. All I get is just one agent out here, right? And if I just scroll down into something known as agent pools, there is something called Azure Pipeline Agents. And inside this, if I look at the agents, there is only one agent that is online, which means at max, at max, you can run one build pipeline or one release pipeline at one time. At max, this is what you can do. Either one build or one release at one time because you have only one computer, you have only one machine that Azure is giving you. The question is, can I increase this out? Definitely, yes, you can increase it out. That's where Azure DevOps pricing comes into picture. So if I just scroll down and if I tell that, okay, fine, one agent is free, and if I request Microsoft telling it, okay, fine, you know what, if I want, let's say 20 agents, it charges me about 3,299 for every additional agent, for every additional agent, or for every additional computer. And at max, I can have about 20 different agents out here, which means that I can go and run 20 different pipelines at one time or one, let's say, given time. Let's say given time. The reason I'm telling that I need a parallel request is because in a huge organization, let's say Microsoft, to give you an example, development happens parallelly. Development teams work parallelly with each other, which means that I have multiple developers who are making changes to the same code base at a given hour, and multiple developers are expecting their code to get built in the same hour out here, which means that I need capacity to do that do that particular build. And when I'm talking about capacity, I'm just talking about how many agents are really allocated to me. And as of now, there is just one agent out here. There's one agent that Microsoft is giving me, and if I want to increase it, I can increase it, provided at a cost. Every agent that you add out here is around 65,000, or sorry, is around 3,299 rupees. And I'm calculating it at, let's say, 20, which gives me around 65,994 rupees, which you can say that, yes, I mean, we can go ahead and do this, right? Then why do you need something called as a self-hosted agent? Why do you really need this? The very important reason being, see, in this pipeline, I just have a couple of steps like .NET Restore, build, test, and test, and so on and so forth out here. Let's say I am not doing a .NET project. Let's say I am doing a project for a team which primarily works on an AI/ML project, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And usually, guys, when you talk about AI/ML and all these things, right, the code that you built is or the code that you try to build, right, that is very heavy code, meaning it'll take a lot of time to actually build the code, and also the kind of machine that you need or the kind of virtual machine that you actually need in order to go ahead and build this code, these are all high powered machines that you need. Now, there is no way that I can tell Azure that, you know what, please give me a machine with this particular capacity. Or please I cannot request Azure telling that, okay, fine, you're giving me a hosted agent, that is good. It's a software as a service, it's a customized, or it's, let's say, a pre-built package, it's not a customized package. It'll just go ahead and give you a machine that is available at that particular point in time without considering what is the code that you're building. Is it, let's say, super complex code? Is it easy code and all that stuff? Which means that the machine that Azure really provides you, that machines may not be high powered, or they might not have enough RAM capacity in order to go ahead and build your code, which means that you don't have whatsoever any control on what kind of machine gets allocated to you out here. So what happens if Azure gives you a low powered machine? You're trying to build a high powered code. Very simple. The RAM of the machine might not support. Your pipeline might fail. If your pipeline will fail, the release is going to fail, or the release is not even going to be getting created. And if the release is not getting created, you cannot deliver the code to your client. If you're not delivering the code to your client, you are simply impacting your own business. So this is one of the most crucial ingredients in our entire software development lifecycle. Reason being, companies tell that, okay, fine, you know what, we need control on this. We need control on how many machines that I need, what kind of machine that I need, meaning whether it's a Linux machine or whether it's a Mac machine or whether it's a Windows machine, and what kind of a software. Let's say, for example, one of the examples can be that what your machine or your code needs a custom software to be installed on for do a build. Otherwise, without that particular custom software, you cannot really build the code and it will just fail for that particular reasons. And also, you also want to tell that what I want a machine with, let's say, something like 64 GB RAM or 128 GB RAM, because the code that I'm building, it is super intensive. The code that I'm, let's say, really building out here, it's super intensive and I need so much high powered machine out here, for which as a company I will always and always strive to maintain a control over my agents. And I ask Microsoft that what, is there a way that I can go ahead and, let's say, take my own agents out here, or I have a machine, I want to put my machine here. Is there a way to do that? Microsoft says yes, there's of course a way to do that. That's where self-hosted agents comes into picture, which is purely an infrastructure as a service. Microsoft is telling it is now your responsibility to create your machines. I ask Microsoft, should I create the machine necessarily in the Azure portal? Microsoft says no. You can have your machine anywhere, whether it is AWS, whether it is GCP, or whether it is on-premise service, whatever it is, I don't care. All you do or all you need is a machine there. That's it. All you need is a machine. And if you have a machine, you're good with that. If you have a machine out there, you're good with that. I can allow you to go ahead and run this particular pipeline on this particular machine or that particular machine out here as such. This is something which I will allow. And that's where a self-hosted agent as a concept comes into picture. And this is the question called why. Until now, I've just explained why do we need this? Why do we need even a self-hosted agent? I'll come down to the question on how do we create a self-hosted agent. That's something that I'll come down to. But before I move forward, is everyone clear on why do we need this, guys? Any follow-up questions there that I can take before I move forward? Anyone? Any questions there? Are we good, guys? Can I move forward with this particular? Yes, go ahead, please.
You said that we can configure GCP VM also, right?
Sorry, can you
GCP
come again, please?
self-hosted. You said that we can configure GCP self-hosted agent, right?
Yes, you can do that. Your machine, which platform your machine is running, I
Okay.
mean, Microsoft doesn't or Azure DevOps doesn't really concern about that. All it needs is a machine on which you can run this out. That's it.
Okay. We have to integrate with the GCP. Is there any particular approach for that one to integrate with the GCP cloud?
No, I'm not telling that you can integrate with the GCP cloud. I'm just
Hmm.
telling you can run your pipeline on a GCP based machine. I'm telling you can run a pipeline on a machine. So if it's a machine running anywhere, if it's a Windows machine, the first thing that you do is you do an RDP, right? You go ahead,
Hmm.
connect to that particular machine using an RDP.
Yes.
After you do an RDP, the process remains the same for a machine which is running on any cloud or on premise. Like the process remains literally the same thing. That's the process that we are going to look at. In my case, I have a machine running on Azure. I'll do an RDP into that and then I'll get started with the process. In your case, you can have a machine in GCP. You can do an RDP and get started with the process. Process remains the same. How do
Okay.
you integrate it? That's something that we'll see.
Okay.
Yes, any more questions, guys? So until now, I've been talking about the why. On why do I really need something known as a self-hosted agent if Azure really is giving me the hosted agents out here? And now the question is, how do I really create this? And how do I really, let's say, go ahead approach this, let's say, a self-hosted problem out here as such? That's where I'm coming down. And that's the how question, or that's the how part of it is how. How do I go ahead and do this? That's the second question, or that's the second part. And to answer the how, the first thing is that I need an infrastructure. When I'm talking about a self-hosted agent, I'm talking about an infrastructure as a service. I'm talking about an infrastructure out here. And my infrastructure for today will be a virtual machine based out of Windows 2016 or 2019 server, sorry, based out of 2019 server running on the Azure cloud. All I did is I just went ahead, created a virtual machine on the Azure cloud in short. Because I have an account in Azure, I don't have an account in AWS or GCP. That's the reason I did not create something there. But I just went ahead, created something called as a demo VM out here in Azure. I just went ahead and said, okay, fine, this is my VM. This is what I want to create it out. And I have been assigned, let's say, something like a public IP address of this particular virtual machine. So this is the public IP address out here. And I'll just go ahead, take this particular public IP address and connect to this particular virtual machine out here. So all I'll do is just type in mstsc, which is nothing but my remote desktop. I'm putting in the IP address out here. And I don't think it copied. Epson 2.16 and 6.255.140. And I'll just go ahead and give the username of this particular machine that I created. And all I'll try to do is just establish a connection to this particular, let's say, machine out here. So I'm doing an RDP. It's allowing me to do the RDP out here. I'll say yes. And this is the first thing. So I'll just write down the every step that I'm following because there are multiple steps that I'll implement right now. So just to avoid confusion, I'll just go ahead and write down the steps that we are following out here so that everyone can follow along. So A, I created a machine. Now this is what I'm telling is that where you create the machine, Azure doesn't care. You can have it in GCP, AWS, Azure, on-premise, wherever it is. You just need a machine and you just need to have an access to that particular machine. Whether you have a private access, public access, could be anything, not a problem. All you need to do is get into the machine. That's it. B, after creating the machine, I did an RDP. So I got into the machine. This is the machine right now. So I did the RDP into the machine. Great. C is that now I'll go into the Azure DevOps Cloud. I'll now say, okay, fine. Instead of using something called Azure Pipelines, I want to now use something like my own private agents out here. So in order to do that, under the agent pools, I'll just say manage. And now it's going to tell me that yes, this is the Azure Pipeline agents. And if I click on something called agent pools, I have something called Azure Pipelines, and there is something called a self-hosted pool. You can also go ahead and add your own pool. I can say add a new pool. I'll say this is new pool, and the type of the pool is something called self-hosted. And I'll say that this is a new pool, something like this, some name. And I'll say grant access to all my pipelines or grant the permission to all my pipelines to access this particular agent. And I'll say great. So what I'm doing is that I'm creating something known as a pool. A pool is like a folder or like a resource group to compare it with Azure, which holds all your agents out here. So just like Azure pipeline pools holds a hosted agent, a new pool can have something called a self-hosted agent out here. And now it's telling, you know what, add your first agent. I don't see one. And I'll say, yes, I want to add a new agent. I'll say, click on new agent. It's telling before you add a new agent, you'll have to perform all these steps. Firstly, you have to download the agent. Where you have to download the agent? You have to download the agent on the machine which you are configuring. What do I mean by this statement is that I want this particular machine, right, that I created. I created this machine for a reason because I wanted this particular machine to act as my agent. And I will just go ahead and download this particular agent service on this particular machine. How will I do that? Very simple. I have already done the RDP into the machine. I'll just say copy this link. I'll just go back to my machine. I'll say yes. I'll say close this out. Open the Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge, whatever is the browser that you have. Irrespective of all those things, just open that out. And once the browser opens, I just copy the link, right? I just paste the link out here and say ask me later. I just paste the link out here and say enter. And as soon as I do that, I'll say yes, okay. I'll say okay. As soon as I do that, I'll say add, and this is a server. That's the reason it's just giving me all these things out. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me first disable the Internet Explorer, the IE enhanced protection, because this is going to block me out from downloading that particular link until I add this out. So I'll just go into the server manager of this particular machine out here, and I'll just go ahead and disable the internet policy, which is blocking me out here right now. So I have something called IE enhanced protection. Say off, say okay, good enough. Just try this out right now. So I'm just pasting the entire link that I have copied from here. And I'll just say save. So it just goes ahead and downloads the zip file. All it does is that if I just go ahead and look at this again, if your organization is not allowing you to go ahead and let's say disable the enhanced protection, you can download it on your system and transfer it into the agent machine. So you can just go ahead and download it on your own system, transfer it into the Windows virtual machine that you have. Should work, will work, not a problem at all. Again, if I just go into the download section out here, all it does is that it gives me a folder called VSTS. VSTS is Visual Studio Team Server, the earlier or the former name of Azure DevOps. Some people also call it as VSTS today. I'll just go ahead, do a right click. I'll say extract all. So zip file, so I'm extracting it out. I'll just browse this out. I'll go into the C drive of this particular machine. Just put a folder called first agent, something like that, since this is the first agent that I'm creating. So I'll say first agent, and I'll just select folder. I'll say extract. So what I'm doing right now is that I downloaded all the zip files on the agent machine, and D, I am extracting all the zip files into, let's say, the C drive, into the C drive. Again, you don't really have to do it in the C drive. You can also have a D drive or an E drive, F drive, wherever you want to extract it out. Shouldn't be a problem at all. But the preference or the best practice is to go ahead and let's say do it on the C drive, because the reason being, again, you're running the code and you're doing a lot of things out here, right? So you need access to, let's say, the registry of the system and a couple of things out here as such. So in order to facilitate for the same, I'm just going in and let's say extracting it on a C drive, but you can go ahead and alternatively extract it in any drive that you do need out here as such. So I'm just going ahead extracting it out here, and let's give it a second. It will take like about a minute or so to extract the entire folder. So it's about 78% completed. So if you give it a minute or so, it'll extract all these things into something called as a first agent drive out there. And I'll then start with the configuration. So all these things till now was the preparation. Until here was I'm preparing my infrastructure. Second thing that I'll start with is the configuration part. And when I say configuration, now if you see, it's now telling that yes, this PC, this particular agent and all that stuff, and it has all these folders called bin, external, configuration, all these things out. What I'm going to do is that I'll just copy this out, or you can just do a CMD here and say enter. It's going to open a command prompt in the, let's say, the same folder in which you have all these files extracted. And what I'm going to do right now is that I'm just going to call one particular file called config.cmd, this one. So this folder or this file is already there. So I'm just going in, invoking this particular file, telling that, okay, fine, I want to now configure the agent, and I'll say enter. As and when I do this, it's going to run a program. It's going to invoke that particular file, and it's now going to give me telling that, you know what, it's Azure Pipelines, welcome to this. Give me your server URL, meaning where do you want to configure this particular self-hosted agent. So I just went ahead and opened that particular file called config.cmd. As and when I did that, it's telling welcome to Azure Pipelines. It's asking for a server URL. All I'll simply do is just go back, and this is the new pool. I'll just go into a different tab. I'll just click on Azure DevOps, and this is my server URL, which is dev.azure.com/DevOps classes 1992. I'll just copy this out. I'll paste this in here, which is called dev.azure.com/DevOps classes 1992. This is the URL of my server. I'll say enter. Now it's telling, okay, great. You've given me the server URL. Now tell me how exactly will this particular machine, which is nothing but a VM, that is in my case running on an Azure cloud. In your case, it can be running on an AWS, it can be running on a GCP, it can be running, let's say, on on-premise server, right? It can be running anywhere. How should or how will this particular server communicate with your Azure DevOps? Or there should be some way in which they both can communicate with each other. And that's where something called as a PAT comes into picture. PAT also stands for Personal Access Token. It's nothing but a secret that you generate at your end, give it to an application called, or give it to, let's say, a server like infrastructure as a server. I mean, give it to a server like the one that I'm configuring right now. And this will help this particular server establish a handshake or establish a secure handshake with Azure DevOps. And that's what it is telling me right now. Is that, can you enter the authentication type? Press enter for PAT. I'll say yes. I would like to use something known as a personal access token. And it's now asking me, please give me a personal access token. I will need to go into my Azure DevOps. This is my Azure DevOps account. Under my account, this is the user that I'm using, which is classes@azure-devops@gmail.com. This is the administrator user. Just beside that, I have something called user settings. Just click on that. There's something known as a personal access token. I click on this and I'll say a new personal access token. I'll say test token, something like this. And I'll give an expiration of 30 days. I'll say this token expires in 30 days. And I'll say full access. I'll say great. I will just copy this out, go back into my server, paste this out. Whatever that I copied, I'm pasting it out and I'll say enter. What it's now doing is that it's now trying to establish a connection with your Azure DevOps using the personal access token that you've given. And now it's telling yes, the token is valid. Now let me try and registering the agent. Tell me under which pool that I need to register this out. I created a specific pool for this, remember, called new pool. I'll just go ahead and say this is the new pool and say enter. Now it's telling, okay, great. Can you tell me what is the name of the agent? Do you want me to give, or Azure DevOps is now telling that, the setup is now telling me that, you know what, the name of the machine is demo VM. Do you want me to name it the same way? Sorry, can you come again, please? Okay. So it's telling there's something called demo VM out here. Do you want me to name your agent same as the name of the virtual machine, or do you want to give it a different name? Again, optional in nature. In my case, I'm creating a first agent, right? So I'll say, go ahead and give this as first agent. I'll say enter. Now it's saying, okay, fine. I'll just scan for the tool capabilities and all these things out. And it's now telling me that, okay, fine. I'll go ahead and try to register the agent. And this is what it's doing in the background. If I just refresh this out, there is a first agent in the background that's being configured right now. So I'll just give it a second, one more second out here in order to, let's say, configure this out. And now it says the connection that I'm trying to establish is successful. And there is a machine with the name called first agent, which is though in an offline state. We'll talk about that too. It's telling yes, the machine is in offline state. Now it's telling yes, what is the working folder, meaning where should I download the code in the agent and how do I, let's say, convert this and all that stuff. I'll just say enter, go for work. And now it's telling, do you want to run this agent as a service? There are two ways in which you can run this agent is one being a service, the other being interactive. 99% of the times you go for something called a service. We'll talk about what is interactive out there. I'll say why. Yes, I want to run this agent as a service. I'll say enter. I'll just again say enter out here. I'll say enter. As and when I do this, it's telling, okay, fine, I'm taking a Windows account in order to, let's say, run this particular agent. And it's now telling, you know what? I have registered a service with Windows with this particular name. I'll also talk about this on what exactly a service means for me out here. Now it's telling enter whether to prevent the service to start immediately after configuration. I'll just say enter here. Just click here, say enter, and done. It's now telling the service has started successfully, it is configured successfully, and so on and so forth. I'll just refresh the screen out. It will take a minute or so for this agent to come online. And now if you see, the agent is now online out here as such. So what I did right now is this. I entered the server URL. I said the configuration type or the authentication type is a PAT token. I generated a PAT token. I went ahead and generated something known as a PAT token out here. And then I went ahead and I said, okay, fine, when I'm running this particular agent or when I'm configuring this particular agent, please use this particular token. And I've given details like what is the agent pool? What is the working folder? And do I want to run this particular agent as a service? I said, yes, I want to run this agent as a service. I went ahead, configure this out, and into the pool right now, I'm now able to see something known as a first agent, which is online in nature right now. This is how I went ahead and configured the agent. How do I use that? That's a question that I need to answer. But in the configuration, so until this point wherein I'm configuring the agent, does anyone have a question that I can take before I move forward? Anyone, any questions still here on the configuration part of the agent out here such? Anyone, any questions here? Again, this is our role as a DevOps engineer in order to go ahead and configure these agents, in order to create these agents and get these agents configured. And when I say get these agents configured, it is our duty as a DevOps engineer to also go ahead and create the underlying infrastructure, like the virtual machine and so on and so forth out here such. So all these are now our duties as a DevOps engineer out here as such. So now if you see, the agent is now telling it is running. All I do right now is that for a pipeline to run on this particular agent, I'll just go ahead, take a pipeline. I'll click on this particular, let's say, pipeline out here. I'll say edit. It's now telling me that the agent pool here is Azure Pipelines. I'll just change this and I'll say, please go ahead and use something called as a new pool. So I just changed the pool, telling please go ahead use something known as new pool out here. I'll just go ahead and save this out and queue this out. So I'm just going ahead, changing the pool, and I'm telling, okay, fine, please go ahead and take a pool called, let's say, something like the first pool or let's say the new pool out here. And inside that pool, whatever agent that you see idle, or how many other agents that you see idle out there, please go ahead and run my pipeline on top of it. Now see, this pipeline is now running on my machine that I created on Azure DevOps, sorry, on the Azure portal, on which I have a complete control on. I know where the code is getting downloaded. I know how the code is getting downloaded. If there are any issues, I'll also have to look into that particular issues and so on and so forth out here. But this is a machine that I have a complete control on. And this is how I have gone ahead, configured this particular machine. And I'm now using this particular machine on to, let's say, run that particular code out here. Of course, yes, if this fails, I'll have to again check why the code is failing and all that stuff. We'll talk about that too. But yes, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions that I can take till you? Are we good till here, guys, on how did I configure the agent and how are we selecting the agent out here? Are we good till here? Yes, no, maybe. Guys, can you all hear me? Are we good with the configuration? Or does anyone have any questions here?
Okay.
Okay. So my question to you all again, guys, is that I have run this pipeline here and I see a failure on .NET Restore. Now, while restoring this particular project, there is a failure out here. And on line number 12, this is the error message that I'm getting. This is exactly the error message that I'm getting. I've pasted this particular error message on the chat. It's telling unable to locate the executable file called .NET. Please verify whether the path exists or not and whether the path is settable and that stuff. Can anyone tell me why are we getting this particular error out here? Or what do we mean, or what does this error really mean out here? Let's try to troubleshoot this out. This is our first agent, and let's try to troubleshoot this out here as such. Yes, can anyone understand what the error is? We'll say that, you know what, we'll see how to troubleshoot that error, but can anyone firstly understand what this error really means out here?
Maybe there is no file to get.
Maybe there's no file to get, but can you see what exactly is the error it is talking about? Can anyone let me know what is the error here?
So it's telling verify the file path.
Verify the file path. Or is it telling you that there is no executable file or there is no executable command with the name called .NET? Which means that, remember a couple of days ago, I was just telling you that in order to, let's say, go ahead and do a .NET restore and all these things out, I just went ahead and I said, okay, fine, if I go here into this particular path and I run something known as .NET restore, without throwing any error, it's going in and doing a restore of the project. But this is not happening same with the virtual machine, which means that if I go here into this path, again, if you check this path out, and if you go into your first agent, there is something called underscore work folder that got created, under which you have all your code that got downloaded out here. So all this is your all code and all that stuff, it got downloaded. And if I try to if I try to run the same thing called .NET restore on my virtual machine, very simple, it's again giving me the same error, which means that my machine does not have something called as a .NET SDK, software development kit. It simply doesn't have this. it doesn't have something known as a software development kit out here. I need to install all these packages before I go ahead and run my build pipeline. Before I go ahead and run my build pipeline, I need to go ahead and install all these packages out here. When I'm talking about a hosted agent service, a hosted agent meaning a Microsoft hosted agent out here, all these packages are a part of that particular image that you get. I did not do anything. I just went there and said, okay, fine, you know what, just go ahead and run this out. Microsoft is taking care, Microsoft is taking care of all that for me. But when I'm now talking about a self-hosted agent, this is now my responsibility to go ahead and let's say make sure that all these softwares are installed. So I need to first go inside my machine. Let's say something like download.NET SDK or something like that. I need to make sure to go ahead and download and install all the .NET SDKs that I need. So it's telling .NET SDK for Visual Studio. This is not the one that I need. Yes, this is the one. Just .NET SDKs out here. So I have all these SDKs out there that I really need out there as such. And it's telling yes, this is the .NET SDK 64-bit installer. This is the 6.0 version, and I'm just installing this .NET SDK. And once you install this out, you will need to restart your machine, and then you can rerun your pipeline. That should fix the issue. So very importantly, the way you need to troubleshoot this out is just to try to compare it with your local machine. See what kind of a software that your code really needs. And to understand what kind of a software your code really needs, you can also have a connect with your developer and ask them that, you know what, is this the right software that I'm really looking at? Is this the real version that I'm looking at out here as such? And once you install this out, always make sure that, you know, for example, if I install this out, always make sure that after the installation, you are restarting the machine and then go ahead and trigger this pipeline off, and that should resolve your issue for you. So that's something that I'm leaving it on you all, telling how do you install this and how do you really troubleshoot this out here as such. I'm just giving you the idea on what I'm doing. You can go ahead, try out an alternative and let me know if it works for you. But this is the overall procedure on how do you configure and how do you run. So how do you run? Very simple. I'm doing an edit pipeline, telling which pool that I'm running. That's it. I'm just telling what is the name of the pool, and that's it. I'm just telling this, and it's going ahead and telling that okay, fine. This is the pool. I'll just go ahead, grab the agent from that particular pool, and there's only one agent in this particular pool called first agent. I'll grab it out, and I'll then go ahead and try to run this out here as such. And during restore, I got a failure. Reason again, because I do not have a .NET dependency on my virtual machine. So I as a user, or I as an administrator, I as a DevOps engineer, I need to make sure to install all these softwares, keep it ready in place before I go ahead and run my pipelines. And that's what exactly I'm doing right now. So saying this is installed, and all I need to do is just go ahead and let's say restart my machine. And once the machine is restarted, I'll just go ahead and let's say rerun that particular pipeline out here as such. So I restarted my machine. It'll take some time for the machine to come back online. Once it's coming online, I'll just go ahead and rerun this out, and that should take care of it out here as such. Yes. Any questions here on how did we configure and how are we running? Again, guys, 90% of the times, believe me, 90% of the times, you are going to work on a self-hosted agents. You are going to understand and work on something known as self-hosted. So it's very, very important to do a practice on what is a self-hosted agent and how do you configure a self-hosted agent out here as such. Yes. Any questions, guys?
Kiran, my code in 3 version,
Mm-hmm.
okay, 3.1 version, and you have downloaded 6 the SDK is a 6 version. Yeah?
Right.
Is it support for the code?
Yes. So usually all your SDKs has a backward compatibility. When I mean compatibility, I'm just saying that if it's 3, even if you download 6 or a 7, it'll go ahead and help you build a 3. But the other way around is not possible, meaning your code is 6, but you have downloaded 3.1, that will fail. So in that way, you'll have to, let's say, match your dependencies out there as such. But if your code is 3, you download a 6, still work.
Hello,
Yes. Good, please.
sir. I little bit confused last 2 3 classes, sir. I am not. I'm not grab the data, sir. Grab the knowledge. Fulfill,
So
sir. On
when you say, yeah, when you say you have not grabbed it, please let me know what are the topics that you have. Just a second. Please let me know what are the topics that you haven't understood and what is specifically that you've not understood. And also, did you try practicing this at your end before you go ahead and, let's say, ask that particular question? Did you try to, let's say, implement this out? And when you're implementing it, what is the area that you are having an issue? And if you can tell me these things, I'll definitely help you with that.
I'm not. I'm confused in pipeline sections.
Yes, sir. When you
Started.
say pipeline sections, yes, sir. When you say pipeline sections, what exactly is the confusion that you have?
Sir, CMD deploy. అదే CMD
Mhm.
pipeline మీరు చెప్తున్నా కన్ఫ్యూజ్గా ఉంది సార్ నాకు కొద్దిగా.
So, did you try that out at your end? Like when you say CMD, did you try that out at your end? And when you say CMD, can you please specify a little bit on that? On what is the exact area that you are facing an issue, so that I can connect with you and address that out.
Okay. Last 2 more classes I am not understand properly.
Yes, sir. When you say last 2 more classes, I cannot repeat the entire thing. I want you to tell me what is the topic that you're not comfortable with so that I can address the same.
Sir, okay, sir. Okay, sir. I will
Yes, so
tell
if
you.
you can tell me the topics, I'll definitely help you with the same thing out there.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, any more questions, guys?
Kiran, are we done with this administration part completely?
There are still a few topics like backups and recovery.
Okay.
I was planning a session this weekend. Probably if I am not available this weekend, I'll make sure
Okay.
that it's covered during the weekday. And there are a couple of services like Keywords. Azure Keywords is one of the services that we need to really look at, and
Mhm.
that's the service we will be looking at along with Azure DevOps as such.
Okay. And firewall also, I think you have not covered it.
When you say firewall, do you mean NSGs or do you mean specifically firewall out there?
Specific firewall. NSG is like
Mhm.
local firewall only, no? For the system firewall, it is.
Not really. Energy is or energy is something which can be applied to your let's say virtual networks out there.
Mhm.
But yes, there is a concept called firewall out there as well. But again, firewall is a pure administration topic. That's the reason I did not go in there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, any more questions,
You,
guys?
sir,
Hmm.
you also cover firewall after few days.
Firewall is something I'm not taking up. Firewall is something that I won't be able to take up right now because that's a pure administration concept. So I'm not going into that particular aspect of it. Code is not present on the VM. Yes, package new code is not present. Yes, as a DevOps engineer, what dependencies or softwares we need to install in the VM? As a DevOps engineers, we need to exactly install the dependencies that the code really needs out. In my case, .NET. That's what I need to really install out there. How do I know that? I need to work with the developer in order to know that.
Kiran, normally self-hosted means only virtual machine or any on-premises server.
Any on-premises server also, I'm good with that. Self-hosted means any on-premises anywhere your machine is running, meaning it can also be my laptop. So if I can take my laptop and also make it as a self-hosted machine, even that's good.
Okay, Kiran.
Yes, any more questions, guys? Yes, we can also use Linux servers also. Yes, definitely, we can use Linux servers also. That's what it tells you. So I just went and did a Microsoft hosted, so sorry, Windows hosted. If I say new host, new agent, right? I did a Windows. You can also click on Linux, and these are the commands that you need to just run. So again, the configuration is literally the same. You just need to, the commands just change a little bit when you talk about a Linux, let's say environment out here. So you can do a Linux, you can in Linux, you can do, let's say something like on an Ubuntu or Fedora, Cent, whatever it is. And you can also go ahead and let's say do the same thing on a Mac operating system also. So any platform, any softwares, when you say compatibility, what exactly do you mean by that? I don't really understand what the term called compatibility out there. If you can elaborate on that, I can let you know what exactly that is or how exactly that works out. Yes, but yes, you can when you internet on the server. No, you don't need internet on the server. Why do you need an internet on the server? No, you don't. I don't really need an internet on the server. I don't really need an internet. All you need is an intranet. And any server will come with an intranet out here. Yes, any more questions, guys? Right. Alright, so that's it from mine, guys. That's what I had for today on how do you configure self-hosted agents. I want you to just try this out. And in tomorrow's sessions, we'll dig more deeper into, let's say, the pipelines and we'll move into the release part. And before we do that, we'll also cover an important concept called sonar integrations. We'll also look at that as well out there. And tomorrow we have the session during the same time, 8 to 9 in the morning. Today I was traveling, so I couldn't take the session at the same time. I wanted to, let's say, adjust it in this particular time out here. Such. Right. Thanks, guys, and have a good day. Thank you.